Welcome to the LDN Radio Show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing Loe Dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. This show is sponsored by our members who made donations. We'd like to give them a very big thank you. We have to cover the monthly costs of the radio station's software, bandwidth, phone lines and phone calls to be able to continue with the radio show. And thank you for listening. I'd like to introduce Sara, who's from Wisconsin in the United States, and she takes LDN for rheumatoid arthritis. And interestingly, her dog Nico also takes LDN for Lyme disease. Thank you for joining us today, Sara.
Oh, it's my great pleasure, Linda.
So, who started taking the LDN first, you or your dog?
Oh, let's see. I did because I have a naturopath who told me that he also takes LDN. And at the time, I was doing pretty well with rheumatoid arthritis, like not very much pain. I had done some other things that were helping me. And when I went to my naturopath to talk with him about it, he recommended LDN, but I said, oh no, I've got it covered. I'm good. On my way out the door from his office was a flyer for a class that our local compounding pharmacy offers, a class once a month in LDN for patients. And I picked up that flyer and got very curious, started doing some research online, and a day or two later called that naturopath and said, yeah, please, put me on, make a prescription for me, please. And I started LDN on November 2nd, so almost a year ago, in the evening. And the next morning, nothing was different. I took it the next night. The third morning, I woke up and said to my husband, this is a really important day. And then I said, wait, I don't usually think like that. That was such a change in my thinking because I had been somebody who, everything was tedious. I would have said, sure, I can do it because I said I would do it. And yes, okay, I can power my way through that too. That was a very bleak way of looking at the world. But that morning I woke up and said, this is an important day. And I continued to take LDN, and less than a few weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night chuckling. I chuckled myself awake twice. And then again in the morning, I chuckled myself awake. Now, this is not me. It's not the me that I was. So the way that LDN has been useful for me is more with the mood change. And I have another friend who said that she can now, because of LDN, she can now tolerate her pain, and hers is polymyalgia. So there's a bit of that in my case. I do think the pain has also decreased, that I was really not so aware of how painful everything had been because I'd had the diagnosis for 13 years. But so the pain continues to decrease, honestly, up to almost a year later. And so then I went to the class. I had already been taking it for 2 weeks, and I went to the class to learn more about it. And at the class, they had the ending slide there was of pets, that LDN can be used for pets too. And in the class itself, they talked about using it for Lyme disease, for when people have Lyme disease. And a light bulb went off in my head, and my dog has Lyme disease. I think you're never rid of that condition either. Mm-hmm. And he had been tested by the veterinarian and been put on antibiotics, very serious, for a month, and then gabapentin for the pain. And he was not doing well. His leg would fall out from under him. He was no longer jumping up on our bed. We would look at him and say, oh, poor Nico, Lyme disease, we can't do anything else for him. So I'll admit that I started sharing my LDN with him. And I didn't know the dose, except that I thought a child that was 20 pounds, there were some little bits of information, would take 1.5 milligrams. And so I gave it to him, and he had the same story, Linda. 3 days later, he was running up the stairs and jumping on our bed and lifting his leg again to pee. It was in both cases, it was a little miracle that happened really quickly. So I called my vet, and I said, would you learn about LDN? And she said, oh, no, call somebody else. And I made 6 phone calls, including to our UW Veterinary Science Department here, the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And nobody was interested in prescribing that or at the time. But after 6 weeks, I called my first vet again, and she said, oh, they had started learning about it. They had 2 other dogs on LDN, and she would prescribe it to Nico, even if it was just palliative for him. And I didn't fess up to say, oh, he's already been on it for 5 weeks. But she was willing to do it if he had a liver test. So I took him in for a liver enzyme test, and of course it was fine. LDN is actually used for liver diseases too. And then she started prescribing it for him. And I've learned that they're since prescribing it to lots of other pets, and other veterinarians in town are as well. So we're all much happier at my house, thanks to LDN, and thanks to your work, Linda, too.
Well, I assume you're talking about the classes that David Yazel and Sue, I can't remember her other name off the top of my head.
I don't remember either, yes. From Hoey.
From Hoey Apothecary,
Hoey.
yeah. In
That's
Madison,
right,
in
yes.
Wisconsin. Yes.
Yes.
They're doing
helping so many people.
Yeah, they are doing amazing things in getting the word out there, educating other pharmacists, physicians, patients. So that's really interesting that you went to one of their classes. So if you had to say, before you started LDN, your quality of life on a score of 1 to 10, what would it have been?
Well, with 10 being really good?
Yeah.
Okay. Just before starting LDN, I would probably say 6.5 or 7. It wasn't bad.
Okay.
And then, of course, your next question
is
what did it change to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say 9.9. The color of the world has changed. My mood is so different. I just find that I'm motivated to do what needs to be done and what I want to do in a way that I hadn't for all those 12 or 13 years since the diagnosis.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was probably deficient in endorphins long before the diagnosis. What's true is both of my sisters now take LDN and feel like they're benefiting from it mood-wise. Many other friends are taking it for other conditions, but probably in my family. My mother had depression and died of pancreatic cancer. So I really think that had we known about LDN sooner, all of us, the quality of life would have been better for so many of us. But we have it now, and I celebrate it.
Oh, fantastic. You did say before that you would do something because you said you would do it and you would make yourself do it. Now when you have to do something, how do you feel knowing you've got to go somewhere, do something? How do you feel these days?
Very much like not only I can do it, but it's important and I want to do it. It's important. That same feeling that I woke up with 3 mornings after taking LDN. Just this is important. And so there's less of a drudgery or a pushing myself to do something. It just doesn't have that same effort required.
Yes, because pushing yourself to do things is very tiring in itself, isn't it? Forcing yourself all the time. Yeah, totally get it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing both your story and Nico's, and long may the LDN continue, and the best advocates of LDN are those that LDN has worked well for. So I'm sure you'll be spreading the word as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you. This show is sponsored by our members who made donations. We'd like to give them a very big thank you. We have to cover the monthly costs of the radio station's software, bandwidth, phone lines and phone calls to be able to continue with the radio show. And thank you for listening. Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.